If you're searching for a job right now, it's likely that you've been lied to. You've been told to maximize for optionality, to keep your options open, to stack credentials whenever you can, and I think the worst advice of them all is to build a resume that impresses random strangers at a networking event. Most people, maybe even you, follow this advice religiously. You got the good grades, you joined the right clubs, and you landed internships at companies that your parents could brag about. But now you're either stuck in a role that you hate or you can't even get hired at all. And I think the worst part of all of this is that you can't really even explain what you actually want. When someone were to ask you, so what are you actually looking for? You just freeze. You say something vague like, I'm open to anything, or I just want to get my foot in the door somewhere good. That answer, I think, used to work in 2015, maybe even in 2020. In 2026, however, I think this is the fastest way to just becoming simply invisible. There's a lot going on, and here's what's actually happening. The career ladder, I don't think broke because of recession or layoffs or anything else that the news is talking about. It's broken because everyone's playing the same game, and this game stopped working years ago. If you're new to this channel, my name's Nishal. I spent my early 20s doing everything that I was told to do. I landed a top investment banking role. I then moved on to private equity. I was making six figures at a young age, and I was on track for a multi-million-dollar salary. On paper, I won. I'm not saying this to brag, but I'm saying this to share that despite having all of these things, I couldn't shake this feeling that I was just building somebody else's life. When I looked around me at my peers who were also smart and ambitious, I saw the same confusion everywhere. A lot of us had really impressive resumes, but most of us had absolutely zero direction in what we were doing. We were always told to optimize for optionality until we really had no idea what we were optimizing for in the first place. So where am I going with this? This is not a video about a rant on how broken the system is. You already know this probably more than most. There are millions of other videos saying the exact same thing. This is a video about why you're stuck and how to get unstuck. We're going to cover three things. First, we'll go over why the maximize optionality playbook is actively destroying your ability to build a career. Second, we'll discuss the shift that's happening right now, making new grads more valuable than experienced workers. And this is only true if you know how to position yourself. And thirdly, we'll go over the career hypothesis method, which is a framework that I've used to really go from I have no idea what I want to do to I have conviction, I'm testing it, I'm moving with direction. So let's start with the uncomfortable truth. Here's what the playbook that the adults, school, and society in general is teaching us. We're always been told to just get good grades, which will lead to extracurriculars and internships, which will lead to a good resume, and then you'll be able to pursue the American dream. This logic sounds reasonable. If you keep your options open, if you have a strong resume, you have flexibility, and if you have flexibility, you have control. Except this is not how the world works anymore. When there are 2,000 applications for every entry-level role, and half of them have the exact same resume as you, companies aren't looking for smart people with good options. They're looking for people who actually want to be there, and you can't really fake that. You can't walk into an interview and just rattle off you're excited about a bunch of buzzwords when you haven't really thought about an industry for more than 30 seconds. Interviewers can tell. I've interviewed countless number of people, and the people that aren't interested genuinely in what they want to do, even if they get the offer, they burn out in 6 months and really just end up hating their life. This is what the optionality trap is about. We all think we're being strategic by not committing, by keeping our options open, but what's actually happening is we're making ourselves invisible. So let me show you a little bit of what this looks like in practice. In the old economy, let's say 2010, credentials were a reliable signal. If you had Harvard on your resume, hiring managers knew exactly what they were getting. The resume said something like, this person is competent, they can figure things out, and they'll probably do fine. That was enough to at least get your foot in the door for an interview. Today, though, having a name brand doesn't really mean much, and it doesn't show the company anything meaningful. A resume doesn't really mean that you're good at your work anymore. It doesn't mean you actually care about the work. It means that you were good at following the rules, and in 2026, to be honest, following the rules is how you become replaceable. The world is moving so fast in 2026 that if you aren't willing to just do things, experiment, try things, go out of your comfort zone, you have a high odds of being replaced or just not having enough value in the business world, if I'm being honest. Companies have learned this the hard way, that if they hire the perfect candidate that looks perfect on paper, 6 months later they just quit because they never actually wanted to be in that role, or they were just using it for a stepping stone. Companies are adapting to this. They're waking up. They're not looking for just smart people anymore. They're looking for people that are aligned, people who can articulate why they want to be there, and people who are showing conviction. So if you've spent the last 4 or 5 years maximizing optionality, you just inherently don't have any conviction in what you're doing. You have a list of things that you could be doing, but you can't really explain why you want to do or what you even want to do. So this problem is accelerating because there are three forces making it even worse than it is today. First, entry-level roles are disappearing. Companies don't need 20 junior analysts anymore. They need about 5 highly effective people who can use AI to do the work of 20. That means the bar for entry is really high. Second, upward mobility has stalled. When promotions slow down and people at the top don't retire, the bottom starts to vanish. And this pressure trickles down to the entry-level roles, where roles are quietly shrinking or disappearing. Third, companies are starting to expect immediate impact. The era of we'll train you for 6 months and figure it out is over, and the people who can contribute from day one, or at least the first week, will start getting their feet in the door. So what ends up happening to people is that they apply to 20 jobs, they get 5 interviews, and then they end up getting 0 offers, right? They're just spraying and praying. They're not moving in a direction that actually aligns with what they want. Worse, and what I've also seen happen, is someone gets an offer and they take it because there's nothing better, and then they just spend the next year or two miserable, and then they can't get out of their job. So it's just a recipe for a downward spiral, if you ask me. And then when you ask these people what went wrong, they just say the market is terrible. System is rigged. I did everything right. But when you look at it, no, you did not do everything right. You just did what everyone else was doing. And I think that's where the problem lies. The system isn't necessarily broken. It's just evolving. And we as society and people and young people are not evolving with it. Especially today when information is abundant, a lot of people are missing that this evolution that is happening is creating the biggest opportunity for all of us, especially if you are young. Young people are not at a disadvantage. And contrary to popular belief, I think we're at the biggest advantage we'll ever have in our careers. So for most of history, knowledge was gatekept. If you wanted to learn how venture capital worked, for example, you had to work at a VC fund. If you wanted to understand beauty marketing, you had to work at a beauty brand. If you wanted to know how software gets built, you had to be a developer. Access to knowledge was a competitive advantage, and the internet started to change that. Yes, you still need to be in these rooms to understand the nuances, but at a high level, you can become pretty well versed in any industry or any field if you spend a few hours researching it. AI is only accelerating this exponentially. Today, you can learn more about a certain field, such as venture capital, marketing, coding, whatever it might be, in 3 months of focused research than someone who's worked in the industry for 3 years but has never critically thought about what they're doing, why they're doing, and understanding the bigger picture. You can understand beauty marketing better than a 10-year brand manager who's just been on autopilot for 5 years. You can start building software without even a degree. I, as a non-technical person, have built a lot of tools that would be unimaginable for me to build just a few months ago. The bottleneck isn't knowledge anymore, it's application of the knowledge. It's taking information, taking knowledge, and then actually doing something with it. This is where new grads have the edge. Think about what this actually means for you, right? The 40-year-old senior manager who built their career in a world where knowledge was scarce, they learned by osmosis. They learned by being in the room. They learned by having access that others didn't have. That's their entire competitive advantage, and that's evaporating. You, a young person, you never really knew the world without instant information. You don't need permission these days to learn anything. You just need focus and the ability to actually take action, actually do something about it. 99% of people say they want something, but they never do anything. They just stay in the same spot. So let's think about this 35-year-old with a decade of experience, right? They have a mortgage, they probably have kids, they have a certain lifestyle that they need to maintain. They have their identity. The entire life is tied up into what they do. They can't experiment, they can't take risks, and they can't really afford to be wrong if they have real responsibilities. But young people, honestly, don't have any of that. We don't really have kids for the most part. We can spend 6 months testing a hypothesis and going down a rabbit hole, and if it doesn't work, no one really cares. You can pivot, you can rebuild. Your brain is still plastic. And I think a bigger point is you're not locked into the "this is how I've always done it" mindset. In a world that's changing faster than most people can adapt, flexibility is probably the most important and valuable skill. And here's what this can look like in real life. A 22-year-old with Claude, Cursor, some of these other AI tools, in 3 months of focused learning can build a product that would have required a team of 5 or 10 developers just 5 years ago. Honestly, just 2 years ago. A young person who's been obsessed with AI-generated content and understands social media algorithms way better than a 40-year-old. If you're interested in marketing and you're under the age of 27, 28, 29, maybe even 30, and you understand how social media algorithms work, you understand AI-generated content, you have a natural intuition about things, you understand this new age of marketing a lot more than a 40-year-old marketing director. They might understand how to budget things out, how to push forward projects, and some of the other things that you just learned being in the corporate world, but you understand the skill better than they could, and you can probably teach them a lot about how to actually do things. So the question is are you using your youth, your time to your advantage, or are you wasting it? So I think the world going forward is only going to reward people who can learn fast, adapt quickly, and demonstrate conviction. Having a resume, having a name brand, having a certification doesn't really matter. End of the day, hiring managers will just ask, can you do the thing that you say you can do? So if there's this massive advantage, why aren't most people using it? In my opinion, it's because most people don't know how to channel it. They don't really have a method to apply this knowledge and do something with it. So in the next part of the video, I'll share some of the frameworks that I've personally used and some of my friends have used. By now, you hopefully understand the problem. You get why optionality is a trap. You see why adaptability beats experience. But how do you actually apply this? How do you go from I have no idea what I want to I have clear direction and I'm moving towards it? It's simple and it doesn't really take more than 30 minutes a day. The first step is to stop trying to find your passion. This is the first mistake I think everyone makes. They think there's some hidden passion buried inside them, and if that they just do enough soul searching or take enough personality tests, they'll discover it. That's not really how it works. Passion can't be found overnight for most of us. It's uncovered naturally. You don't just find something that you care about passively. You have to develop something you care about by spending time with it, getting good at it, and seeing how it connects to other things such as your natural interest or curiosity. So instead of asking yourself, like, what am I passionate about? Start asking, what do I find myself naturally drawn to when I'm not forcing it? Pull out a notebook, write 10 to 20 things that you're slightly interested in. Don't filter it, don't judge it. Don't think about whether it's realistic or marketable, just write it down. Your list might include AI tools, makeup trends, fitness optimization, storytelling, psychology of virality, urban planning, sports, whatever it might be, just write it down. The second thing is to look for intersections and not singular interests. So the reality is no one cares if you're interested in marketing. Everyone is interested in marketing. That's not really differentiated at all. But if you're interested in, let's say, the psychology of viral beauty product launches on TikTok, now that's something that's very specific and very actionable and fits within the domain of marketing. So the magic and the real truth happens at the intersections. So now go back to your list, draw the lines between intersections, look for overlaps. Maybe you notice something like I love storytelling and I'm fascinated by AI tools and I care inspired by education. Those are three things that you start noticing. Your intersection in your interest statement could become, I want to help educators use AI to create better learning experiences through compelling narrative. That's not vague, and that's a very specific interest statement that you can now test. So once you have this, the third step is to build a hypothesis. This isn't a commitment. This is not, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. It's, I think this is interesting. I'm going to go and test it and see if it holds up. For example, the hypothesis could be, I think I'd enjoy working at the intersection of beauty marketing and social media platforms. That's specific, that's testable. That's not just, I want to work in marketing. That's something that you can actually ask people for help with, and so on and so forth. Once you have this, you want to define a point B. This is a specific outcome that represents where you want to be in maybe 2 or 3 years. This isn't, I just want to be successful or I just want a good job. It's something concrete that stems from your hypothesis. So it could be something like, I want to work at a venture studio that launches celebrity brands, or something like, I want to be a product manager at a B2B SaaS company focused on creator tools, right? Your point B is your North Star. It tells you what skills now you have to develop, what relationships you have to build, and what you actually have to do to get there, right? Without it, you're really just wandering. So now you have your interests mapped out. You have something concrete that sits at the intersection of multiple interests. You have a hypothesis statement that you can go and test. You have some sort of direction that you're moving towards. Now it just comes down to working backwards and from your point B that you defined and spending about 30 minutes a day moving towards it. So ask yourself, what do people actually do in this role? What skills do they need? You could find some of this online, or you might have to cold email and do coffee chats to figure out what this is. So for example, if your point B is working at a venture studio for beauty brands, you might discover that they need maybe deep knowledge of influencer marketing, the ability to analyze product market fit, and relationships with beauty industry insight. So now you have 3 things that you know is required for a certain job, and you have a roadmap to start developing those skills. Some of these skills you can develop on your own using AI or just reading about it. Other skills you might need actual projects or tangible experience to develop. But the point is, now that you're moving with a lot more conviction rather than just optionality, people will start to notice this. And I personally have been hired for different jobs that I didn't even want just because I was moving with conviction, and other people can recognize that. As you're moving, the next part of this is less of a step and more of a constant process. So after some time testing your thesis, you want to step back and ask, did my hypothesis hold up? While you were reading, exploring, researching, did you find this thing interesting? Did you feel energized, or were you struggling to do any real work? If you found interest and you were captivated, keep going, double down. If not, it doesn't really matter, because now, guess what? You've learned something that you don't want. Now just iterate your hypothesis or strategy. This is how careers will be built moving forward. It's not about keeping all your options open. It's not about stacking credentials and hoping someone notices. You got to choose a direction, test it intelligently, build relationships to learn more, and then move in that direction. And when you start doing this consistently, you'll start developing conviction, and I promise you, opportunities will start falling into your lap. So if you're early in your career or still in college, I know everything can feel like it's stacked against you. The job market is harder. AI is just taking away roles, and experienced people seem to have all the advantages. But here's what I want to ask you to do this week. Just 3 things. First, write down your 10 interests that we talked about. Just 10 things. Don't filter it. Don't judge it. Just write it down. Second, pick 2 that overlap and write a hypothesis about what sits at the intersection. Third, spend about 30 minutes creating something in public that demonstrates what you're thinking about in that space. So it could be a LinkedIn post, a Substack article, a Twitter thread, anything. It could also even be anonymous if you want. That's really it. You're not committing for life. You're just testing for a few days. And then you'll start to notice, if you consistently keep doing this, you'll have more clarity and conviction than 99% of people with impressive resumes. So conviction is just the first step to launching a career that's meant for you. And I think this is the first time in human history where a 22-year-old with conviction and agency can compete with the 40-year-old with a decade of experience. The world is evolving faster than most people can adapt. The playbooks that worked 5 years ago aren't working anymore. And I think the people that are over 30 are just locked up into identities. They're boomers. They have responsibilities, and they have ways of thinking that prevent them from moving with urgency and from pivoting. As a young person, you're not locked in. You don't have a mortgage. You don't have kids. You don't have a reputation to protect. Most of the time, you don't even have a responsibility. You have nothing to lose. You can afford to experiment, you can afford to fail, and you can afford to rebuild. This is not a disadvantage, it's structurally a competitive advantage. The people that will genuinely thrive in the next decade are going to be the people without credentials. They're going to be the people that just learn how to learn really quickly, learn how to adapt quickly, and they can start moving with conviction and in a direction that matters. They're the ones that are going to stop waiting for permission and just start doing. So if you're feeling stuck, you need to understand you don't have a career problem at all. You just have a conviction problem. And I think conviction isn't something you find, it's something that you build one step at a time. If you want to learn how to actually build your career hypothesis and develop conviction and to position yourself in the new economy, I write a weekly newsletter where I break down frameworks and share strategies that you can start using today. Some of these I talked about today, I go into much detail. It's not fluff, it's not generic advice, it's honestly things that I've been using. The link's in the description. Subscribe if this is helpful, and I'll see you in the next video.